welcome everyone. Welcome to this latest live training event from Conservation Careers. My name's Nick from Conservation Careers, and it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar. Now, before we start, I hope you're all safe and well, wherever you are in the world. Today's webinar is a slight webinar with a difference. We're going to talk about developing your leadership skills in conservation as a conservationist. And normally we would do this as a webinar, which is a teaching event. We're actually going to run it more as a workshop today. Okay, so you guys are going to be doing a task through the workshop as led by our guest speakers here today, who I'll introduce in a minute. And you'll be walking away with some lessons learnt and also some next steps as well about how you can develop your leaderships more. So just a little warning, get a pen and paper ready early if you can, because that's going to come in useful a little bit later. Now, I'm just going to introduce the webinar and I'm going to hand over to our guest speakers for this evening. But before we do that, I'd really like you guys to kind of jump on the chat if you can. So if you're online, if you can just jump in the chat box and just tell us, who you are and where you are. It'd be really nice to kind of hear and see from you guys. So my name's Nick. I'm in the UK. I'm also in Oundle. So it'd be really nice to hear where you guys are on the call as well. So while you're grabbing pen and paper and while you're kind of typing the chat box, I've got you guys working hard already. Let me just introduce a little bit more about what the context of the webinar is today. So why is developing your leadership skills important for your career within conservation and within the sector more widely? Well, I think first of all, it's probably worth saying you don't have to be a leader or a senior person to be developing your leadership skills for your career. It's all about really how you can deliver results at any level in your career. Okay, how you can serve others, how you can collaborate and think strategically, and many more aspects of just being effectively really good, at your job, being as good as you can be. And no matter what level you're in, that's really important, I think, to develop in yourself. It helps you to develop in your career. And it also makes you more employable as well. Okay, and it makes you, it helps you to get hired quicker. So thinking about your leadership skills at whatever stage you are in your career is going to be really important and really helpful to you. And that's really what the focus is today. Now, in this session, you're going to learn a few things. Okay, you're going to review your current leadership status. You're going to reflect on what that means to you personally. Okay, and you're going to determine, where you'd like to be as well, and start to think about, what steps or what goals you might need to set in order to get there. After we've had the kind of workshop session, okay, we're going to leave some time at the end, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes for Q&A as well. Okay, so if you have any questions as well, okay, there'll be time for you to ask those questions. And if you have questions as you go through today, okay, you can feel free to kind of use the Q&A button. So not the chat button, use the Q&A button, okay? And at the end, we'll make sure we can have a look at those questions. If you can keep your questions short, that's really helpful. So we'd have to read very long diatribes, and also, we can use voting to kind of get the most popular questions to the top as well. So there's Q&A at the end, but if you do have things as we go, feel free to drop them in, but we will be addressing those at the end. Right, okay, let me have a quick look at the chat, see who we've got in here. Thank you very much for kind of sharing. We've got quite a few. Claire Roberts, hi Claire, recognise your name in Cambridgeshire, welcome. Rosemary in Sheffield. We've got Elise in Manchester as well. We've got Elena in Ukraine, Phil in Chester. We've got Reese in Mid Wales. Hi Reese, recognise you as well. Cuba in Italy. We've got Antonio in Germany. There's loads of you. We've got Kenya and Oxford, Vienna, Scotland, Slovakia, New Zealand. Wow, what time is it down there? Welcome. Someone in Lima and Belize as well. Rosie from Leeds, my home city as well. Welcome everyone. Also Joachim in Belgium as well. Yo, good to see you, yo. Welcome. Right, okay, so let me just introduce our speakers then for today, our trainers. Now we're really lucky actually, we've got two trainers on the call here from Barefoot Thinking. Okay, we've got Martin Bloxham, Dr. Martin Bloxham, and also Peter Redstone. Now, Martin's worked as the UN consultant for over a decade or more, during which time he's worked across the globe on environmental and sustainable development projects for many organizations. And Martin and Peter are going to guide us through the session here today. So I'm going to join you guys as a member of the audience, actually. Okay, and I'll swing back in again towards the end for the Q&A. So Martin and Peter, welcome to the webinar. Thank you for joining us this evening. Let me hand over to you guys so you can introduce yourselves, and also you can kind of take us through the session you've got planned for us this evening.
Great, thanks, Nick. Welcome, everybody. And yeah, it's fascinating to see where you're all coming from the Ukraine through to New Zealand. Scotland, to everywhere. It's great. Good. So I'm Martin Bloxham, and my colleague here is Peter Redstone. It's interesting what Nick said about that I've been a UN consultant for a decade or more. It's actually nearly 20 years. I think the information's probably out of date. So I come from a kind of a background, an environmental background. I've worked on a lot of international waters projects around the world over the years. But about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, Peter and I got together and set up the Barefoot Thinking Company and the Challenge of Science Leadership training courses, which we've been delivering to people like yourselves ever since. So we have a lot of experience of working with people like you, and it's going to be really interesting working through this material with you this evening for us, for me anyway. Peter is actually in California at the moment, so for him it's the morning, and I think everybody else is somewhere in between. So, Peter, do you want to just say something briefly?
Yeah, no, it's really good to be on the call. I've got a sunny day out there, which is probably making Martin quite jealous. When he says we're used to working with people like you, and that's all the way from early to mid-career. And it spans people from academia to public service organizations, NGOs, and the renewable sector, some of the corporates there.
Great, thank you, Peter. So, yes, I am slightly jealous of you being in California. It's just hovering probably above zero here at the moment, so it's quite cold. Good, let's share the screen. Okay. So, welcome to this session on developing yourself as an effective conservation leader. Nick has already kind of gone through this. I'll go through it very quickly. There's going to be essentially 4 sessions. One is you're going to, after I've spoken for a little while, you're going to review your own current leadership status. And then you're going to reflect on what that means for you. And then from that, determine where you'd like to be in terms of leadership. And then we're going to look at you identifying some goals for getting there, and maybe 1 or 2 steps to reaching those goals. So that's a very brief agenda, so that for those people that like to have an agenda, and we will finish promptly by 8:30. So conservation leadership, science leadership, the area we work in, one of the real challenges that we've had over the years is that it's quite hard to define what leadership is, because it means different things to different people. It means different things to different sectors of society even. And so it's quite hard to say what leadership actually is. One of the other things we've reflected on over the years is that it's actually quite hard to teach people leadership. People try. You can go on degree courses and master's courses on leadership, but it's actually quite difficult to teach people to do it in a practical sense. And that's really what we want to do, try and help people develop themselves as the leader that they want to be, whether they're leading one person, i.e. themselves, or leading a team or an organization. So in order to try to figure out what leadership is, we put together 6 criteria, I think we would call them, 6 thoughts around what leadership is. Now, I'm going to walk through those first before we start using them. So the first thing that we could put into this first criteria is around your own expertise. You know, being an effective leader, an effective conservation leader, is partly about your expertise, your science. If you're a scientist, it may be your application. Maybe you're involved in, you know, maybe remediation of particular ecosystems. Maybe that's your expertise. Maybe your expertise is around research, is more applied around a policy, or maybe it's something else. But whatever it is that you would say defines you as the professional you are, we can put that into that area around expertise. The second area is around delivering results. So one thing is around your expertise, you, and your how you see yourself as a professional. Secondly, it's around how do you deliver results. And delivering results could be around managing teams or managing yourself for that matter. And it's all around the operational delivery. It's around getting things done. It's around tactical working. It's around those day-to-day activities, making sure that projects get completed, work gets finalized, reports get written, etc. The third criteria is around being strategic. Delivering results is very much around management. And then that's an important aspect of being a leader. But being strategic is very much around leadership. It's around leading others in terms of where you want to go in the future. You know, what's your vision here? What's your destination? Where do you want to go? So it needs to be future focused. It could be around horizon scanning, and it's most definitely going to be projected forward more than tomorrow or next week. We're definitely talking about next month, next year, 5 years, whatever. The fourth criteria is around your own self-development. In order to be an effective leader, in order to be good at leadership, you need to make sure that you maintain and develop your own expertise. Now, that may be in your own field, your own professional field. It may be around reading literature, attending conferences, or going to workshops. It may also be around continuous professional development in the area of interpersonal skills, maybe being more creative, maybe around being more strategic, maybe it's around getting buy-in from people, whatever it might be. The fifth criteria is around how you serve others. So to be a really effective leader, you need to be able to bring on those who work with or for you. It's about growing teams. And beyond that, it's around really making a difference. So for me, serving others is also around serving the environment or the area of expertise or the sector that I work in. So it could go beyond working with the individual or team. It could go out beyond that. So it could be for you that serving others is around service to a particular ecosystem, a particular conservation project that you're working on. And then finally, we've got this whole area around collaborating and partnering. How do you collaborate with others? Because the chances are, in the work that you do, you have to collaborate. You have to effectively network. You have to work with stakeholders and partners. And also, you have to perform outreach. You have to reach out to others that may be outside of the work that you're doing to promote what you're doing, to talk to others about it. So there's 6 criteria that we've developed. They're quite broad, and I'm sure if you were looking at that from your own perspective, you might want to adjust those, or you may even think that there may be other categories that you would like to add, but let's work with these for the time being. What I'd like to do now is work through a process with you, which is, I like to use the metaphor of setting sail. So imagine we're going on a journey. Maybe we're going away on this boat. And the 2 things you really need to know is, where are we now? Where are you at the moment? What's your port of departure? And where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? How do you want things to look in the future for you? Where's your destination? Where's your port of arrival? And the way we're going to do that is through something called the development wheel. Nick's going to put this into the chat in a moment for you, so you can all get copies of this. It's in electronic form. It's a Word document, so you can edit it, you can write in it, you can print it out if you've got a printer handy. Or if you've got none of those technologies and you've got a pen and paper, you can draw it out. It's 3 concentric rings and it's 6 segments. Now, the development wheel is a coaching tool. It's not ours. It's not a Barefoot tool. It's not one of our tools, but it's one that we use. And we like it because it's actually multi-purpose. It can be used for a number of different purposes. We're going to be using it around leadership. So it's very much a tool to help you clarify long-term goals and define what success might look like for you in the future. So the way we're going to work with this, I'm going to run through an example of it, a demonstration based on me quite some time ago. And then I'm then going to get you to do your own development wheel. So the first thing you want to do in the development wheel is look at that inner ring where it says 10, where it says reality. What you need to do there is scale the inner reality circle 0 to 10 to define where you think you are now in relation to the criteria that are set around the outside. So I've got there the 6 criteria: my expertise, delivering results, being strategic, collaborating and partnering, serving others, self-development. So in this example that I'm going to run through with you now, think about me. This is 22 years ago. I was a marine chemist working in the Marine Institute in Ireland. I was 1 year into my role, so I wasn't completely new to the job. I knew what I was doing, but I was very much in a role where I needed to be more effective as a leader. So this is how I would have thought, how I think I would have thought 22 years ago. It might not be exact, but it's a close approximation. So in terms of my expertise, I gave myself a 7. I thought I was 7 out of 10. I was pretty good. I got a PhD in analytical chemistry. I was using analytical chemistry in the work that I was doing. I knew my stuff in terms of the science. I didn't give myself more than that because I didn't really know so much around sampling. I didn't really know so much around the bigger picture around environmental monitoring. So I was a bit, fuzzy around that. So I gave myself a 7 there. In terms of delivering results, give myself a 6, a little bit lower. I would actually even maybe said 5. We weren't delivering the results I wanted to deliver. I was having real problems with some of the technicians. I had 2 technicians that were working for me, and I was having real problems with one of them, and it was meaning that we weren't getting things done. So that was a real struggle for me. Being strategic, gave myself a 3 there. I had no real idea, I don't think, about even what strategic was. I was just literally treading water, trying to make things happen. It's very much in a kind of operational role at the time, but I recognised it was a real, it was a low score for me. In terms of my own self-development, I gave myself a 5, not a very high score again, because I think although I had expertise, I wasn't developing myself. I was just working through the role. In terms of collaborating and partnering, I think I was actually quite good. I've always been a good person at collaboration, so I think I've scored myself quite highly there. And in terms of serving others, I was very much of a mind then as I am now in bringing on others, and I really wanted to bring on the people that were working with me. So that's how I scored myself, and you can then just do this and get a real sense of where you think you are now in terms of between 0 and 10, a score of 0 and 10. Okay, the next step then is to examine the wheel one area at a time and ask yourself, what would 10 out of 10 look like? Okay, so if it was essentially, if you were doing this, each of these criteria, these leadership criteria, as well as you possibly could be, 10 out of 10, what would that look like? And then set them as goals for yourself. So again, for me, what I would have seen as my expertise was that I was much more respected in my field, maybe as a member of an expert group within ICES, the International Council for the Exploration of the Seas. So I was actually, I was sitting at not the top table, but I was sitting with way more experienced peers and learning from them. In terms of delivering results, things were getting done on time without fuss. And I had a much better relationship with my technicians. That would be a 10 out of 10 for me. Being strategic, we as a team had a clearer direction for the lab over the next 5 years. Okay, self-development, 10 out of 10. I felt more confident about being directive with those I managed, being able to tell people directly what I wanted them to do. Serving others, the work we do meets a societal environmental need. It's not just sampling, it's not just analysis, it goes beyond that. It has a purpose beyond that. And collaborating and partnering, collaborating across Europe, doing more multidisciplinary work, that would be a 10 out of 10 for me. So that's how I would like things to be. If they were 10 out of 10, they were my goals. And then from that, I could then start to set some very, very simple first actions, next steps. And this is what I'm going to ask you to do as well in a moment, is just to identify one next step for each segment of the wheel. So in terms of being strategic, talk with a line manager about longer term goals. That'd be a simple one to do. Developing myself in terms of self-development, identifying training opportunities and money, a budget to do it. Being more respected in my field as an expert, networking with IC's team members at the Marine Institute. That would have been a really useful thing to have done. And maybe serving others. Perhaps there I could have looked for multidisciplinary projects that I could join, that I could partner with. So that's my wheel. That's me 22 years ago. Now what I want to do is get you to do your own wheel. So these are the steps. There's the wheel. What I want you to do first is to use those 6 criteria as a starting point, scale the inner reality ring, 0 to 10, where you see yourself at the moment in terms of those leadership criteria. Then examine the sectors one at a time, the criteria one at a time, and ask yourself, what would 10 out of 10 look like? And record that goal in the outer ring, in the outer circle. And then finally, identify one next step for each segment of the wheel. One next step that you can accomplish, that you can do to move you towards the 10 out of 10 that you would like to be for each of those leadership criteria. Now, I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do this. Now, I'm here, Peter is here, and Nick is actually doing the wheel himself. So if he has questions around it, he can ask as he's going on, because he has an ability just to speak, whereas you guys don't. If you're getting stuck in any way, the chat is there for you to talk to us. Just put something in chat and we will answer as quickly as we can. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes now. Peter's going to set the timer on this and we'll time 15 minutes. And when the 15 minutes is up, I will then make sure everybody's back in the room, and then we can then move on from there. Okay, so you've got 15 minutes to do this.
Okay. Thank you very much, Martin. Just to say, I've dropped the Dropbox link into the chat box. The first one was linking to the wrong document. Ignore that. The second one will take you to the right document. You should be able to see that from there. But as Martin said, you can just use your pen and paper and draw the wheel that you see in front of you, those 3 circles segmented into 6, right around the outside, and then sort of work through the steps as directed. So whatever's easiest for you, you do it your way.
Okay, you've got 15 minutes and we're here to help you if you get stuck.
Thank you. First question for me, does it matter which one you start on, Martin?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't really matter where you start, but I would start with expertise and work your way around that way. If I had a preference.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask a question, Martin or Peter?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm on delivering results at the moment, asking myself where I sit in terms of 0 to 10. What sort of questions should I be asking myself when I'm thinking about delivering results, that second segment, engaging myself? I've written down this is all about management and those sorts of aspects, but is there anything that would help me to kind of take that a bit further?
I think if you thought about how you feel you're doing in terms of the results you're responsible for, that would give you something to score against. And when you've done that, think about what would excellent, fabulous 10 out of 10 performance look like.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I would add to that, it's going to be very personal to you, to the role that you have compared to other people. And just think about what you're supposed to be delivering on over the next few weeks, months as well. What is it that you need to, and how things got behind, or are things getting behind? Right. Where are things not working as well as you'd like? Because that's going to certainly make your score lower. Yeah. Because what you really want to be doing is delivering effectively on time.
Yeah. So it's almost like thinking through the commitments I've made to myself and others and how I'm hitting them. Yeah.
Looking at your to-do list and where you are. Yeah.
Oh, it's long. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Yo has a question here in the chat. What does being strategic mean again? Could you give an example? He's asking. Thank you, Yo.
Okay, being strategic is around, rather than thinking about the here and now, just I need to get this done now, it's projecting forward and saying, how would I like things to be different in the future? It could be around your career, it could be around the role that you currently have, it could be around your organization or team or the project that you're working on. How would you like things to look in maybe a year's time, or 5 years' time, or 10 years' time? So years ago, when I was working on a project in the Black Sea, we were trying to think strategically about how we would like things to look in maybe 10 or 15 years' time. What's our vision? How we'd like things to look. Could we imagine something that would be a rehabilitated Black Sea, for example? Mm-hmm. And then from that, you can then say, okay, that's my vision. How am I going to get there? What's my goals? What are my objectives? What are my actions? What are my next steps? So you're building it up like that. So that's what being strategic is. It could be, I want to be strategic about my career. I want to think about where I'm going to be in 5 years' time and how am I going to get there, rather than I'm going to apply for this job tomorrow.
Yeah, reacting to it. So there's two more questions. One's a follow-up from you, so I'll go to that straight away. So saying, is it more or less synonymous with planning capacity? Talk about being strategic. That's the first one.
It's linked, I would say. Planning capacity is around saying, what is our capacity to do the work we want to do? And then you could then say, well, how do we make sure that we can manage the work we have to do over the next year or 18 months? So then you can start to think about being strategic on that, with regard to that.
Thank you. And then Nino asked, please could you share the definitions or examples of the 6 criteria? And Yo says, thanks, you're welcome.
Yeah, I can do that. If I go back on the slide, what I can do there is show you the definitions. Eventually, there you go.
Yeah.
I suggest you take a screenshot or something so that you've got it, and then I can then go back at some point in time to the wheel so you know what the steps are.
Mm-hmm. If you've got a smartphone, take a picture. 8 minutes left. Thank you, Peter. So we're halfway through.
I would say that when you're thinking about the 10 out of 10, what your goal is, be ambitious about it. Don't be unrealistic, but be ambitious. What would you really like things to, how would you like things to be if they were 10 out of 10, as good as it got?
What's the time check, Peter? I'm making it about 3 minutes, but
I would guess it is about 3 minutes. I'm not sure Peter's there at the moment, but
okay, yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm there. It's 3 minutes and 10 seconds to be precise.
so make sure that as you're moving to the end of this, that identifying next steps, that you identify something that's concrete, something you can accomplish. As much as anything, something you want to accomplish. If you write the next step down and you go, I don't want to do that, then it's of little value. And of course, maybe not all of these criteria requires a next step. Maybe some of them are actually much more important to you than others. Maybe self-development is something that is really, really important to you. Maybe it's around collaborating and partnering. Maybe you need to really focus in on that. Maybe you need to be more strategic. But identify what you think is the most important for you and identify those next steps. So you don't have to have a next step in every segment. And you may have more than one in one segment.
Is it possible to achieve a 10? Is this one of those things where the goalposts shift the closer you get, or is it possible to say, right, I achieved that there?
I think, Nick, you're being the scientist there, and I think it is a challenge for people. I think, yes, these are notional 10s, and as you move through your career, or even through the weeks and months of, over the next few weeks and months, that might change. But certainly over a career as well, it's definitely going to change. Whether you ever reach 10 seems unlikely. But it's the ambition. It's the sense that this is what I would really like to happen. And of course, it'll change with career as well. What you do. You may be in roles where, as a leader, you need to be much more strategic. You might be in a role where actually that's not so important. Maybe it's much more about collaborating and partnering or serving others.
Yeah, what's nice is it does give you a prioritization. You can see where your needs are greatest, and it gives you direction, I guess, doesn't it? It's sort of like you were saying with the sailing metaphor, this is the direction to go in.
Yeah.
Just got 1 minute left. Thank you, Peter. Just under now.
And as you finish up this, I also want you as well to, if you have a different color pen, that's great. Ring maybe one, maximum two next steps that you're absolutely committed to. 2 things that you really want to take away from this conservation leadership development wheel to act upon. And I want you to hold on to those next steps, because we're going to do something with them shortly.
I feel I want to do all of them. That's my problem.
Well, if you want to do all, that's good as well. But maybe there's 1 or 2 that's absolute priority.
Yep.
So that's time's up, everybody.
Okay. So finish up what you're doing, and I'm going to move the slide on in a moment. Is anybody absolutely stuck? They're 3/4 of the way through and they're struggling, or you just need a minute more? If you do, just put it into chat now, because I think we've actually we've got a couple of minutes to offer if you're really, really not there yet. But you need to let me know. Nobody's typing, so I think, oh, a minute would help. Yeah, okay. I'll tell you what, I'm being very generous. I'm going to give everybody 2 more minutes.
Okay. Started.
Time for prioritizing, yeah.
An interesting observation as to what you're doing at the moment. Nick mentioned the word prioritizing, and prioritizing is a really important leadership attribute. To be able to prioritize, to identify what needs to happen as opposed to everything you want to happen. I'm not teaching you anything new. I'm just giving you a thought to think about there around that. The importance of being able to prioritize. Not just what needs to happen, it's the order that things need to happen in. Maybe some things are much more important than others. It's important to think that through.
Maybe I can just speak to an example that jumps out from me in my little chart here. That's all right.
Yep.
That links very closely to that. I've got being strategic. I've actually put quite low on mine. It's probably my lowest one. And I put, my 10 out of 10 would be, a clear mission, vision, and strategy to get there. This is specifically for CC in my context. We have a mission and a vision, but it doesn't have a time limit to it. So I guess it could be at any point in the future. So what I'd like to do is set like a 5-year mission and vision with a strategy that sits underneath that. And then for delivering results, I've put, projects prioritized and delivered on time would be my 10 out of 10. And my next step would be set 3 monthly goals. I think 3 months is a really nice kind of timeline for that. So for me, I should do my strategy first, my 5-year vision, and then break that down into the steps I need and what those 3 months might look like according to that. So they would determine a priority for me.
Great. Good. Peter, we must be there pretty much on time, are we? Alina's put a comment. I will go back to this exercise later for sure, but for now I'm stuck with how to deal with my team not always delivering tasks on time or not answering properly even after I emphasize the matter is urgent. Is it assertiveness that's missing? It's a good question. It's actually a very good question. Let's hold on to that one for a minute, because I think I want to get you through the next little step. Let's have a think about that, the three of us on the panel here, and maybe we can come up for an answer or give you some thoughts on that. Okay, so now what I want you to do, with everything you've done now, I want you to just spend a few minutes individually reflecting, and this Alina might actually be relevant for the question you've just asked. So what does this all mean for you? Everything you've done here now, you've identified where you are at the moment in terms of the 6 leadership criteria. You've then you've scored yourself against those. You've then said what 10 out of 10 will look like, what your goal is. And then we've asked you to identify one step, or maybe 1 or 2 steps for the criteria that are most important, and then to identify 1 or 2 actions that are absolutely critical. So what does all this mean for you? Secondly, where are you weakest? And thirdly, what do you think you need to do? With all of this in mind now, what do you need to do? Okay, so spend 2 minutes just writing down, think this through, and then when we've done that, we'll have the next small task.
Okay, so on the timer.
Okay, question around, could you rectify the first one for me? What does this mean for you? Looking at everything you've written down about you as a leader, 6 criteria, what does it mean for you? You know, what's your gut feeling here about this? What thoughts are provoked by this? Maybe there's a takeaway that you could take away from this. I've done this. This is what's come out. This is what I need to do. And what else? You're on mute, Peter.
Down to the last 5 seconds.
Okay. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now, before we move on to Q&A, is I want you to share one of your key actions. So what I would like you to do is to say what criteria it's meeting and one key action that you want to take forward for that particular criteria. So you only have to do one of them. So it's the key action that you've identified earlier. So put that up in chat and let's see what people are coming up with. Don't have to, there's no compulsion to do this, but it'd be interesting to see what people feel that they need to do in order to move their leadership forward. And whilst you're doing that, let's now move on to some Q&A. So, over to you, Nick.
Right, okay. Thank you. Yeah, that was really insightful and quite a different session for us, but I've really enjoyed kind of working through that wheel. I just had enough time to kind of get through it myself. So I've shared mine in terms of self-development into the chat. Be lovely to see others who want to share as well when you get a chance. So for me, self-development was around identifying gaps in training programs and putting training programs in place. And I was trying to think about what my priority list of training needs might be and try and sort of think through the top ones that I could focus on. So I find it really good in 15 minutes, kind of seeing the full breadth of different areas within my leadership skills, understanding where I am, where I'd like to be in an ideal world, and then just breaking it down to that single step and then reflecting across them. It feels in 20 minutes, I've got a huge amount of value out of that. So on behalf of everyone, thank you. I find that really useful. So I'd like to really hand over to you guys on the call. So if you could use the Q&A wheel, we're asking you to do two things here. I guess one is going to share your next step according to which one of those 6 areas you'd like to share. Totally up to you. I can see them coming in now, so thank you for doing that. And then any broader questions or anything that's kind of been triggered, any thoughts you'd like to share, if you could use the question and answer area, that's another button down there. If you could share into that really would be great. So jump across to Q&A for questions that you have, and Martin and Peter are here to answer them. While you think about questions and writing questions in that Q&A area, I'll just read through some of the reflections that are coming in. So thank you for sharing. So Miriam, you're saying that for increasing your expertise, taking more certifying courses and belonging to conservation associations to boost your leadership potential. So you're thinking about courses and maybe signing up to an association, a group or a membership, something like that. So that's great for increasing your expertise. Does that sound like a good step forwards, Martin and Peter, for Miriam?
Yes, I think it's. I think it'll all be specific. I can't really comment exactly on whether it's the right thing or not, but yeah, it seems like a very good thing to be doing is to build up your own expertise. I think, and it's about building your own networks and people that can help influence what you want to do. So I think that's really good. Yeah. I was looking at the next one there around being strategic. I need to identify end goal dates to be specific. And in a sense, that's what you were saying, Nick, as well. Is I need to be more strategic in the work that I do, in the way that I behave.
Great. And then Reese Jones, we've got serving others. You want to build up your own skills and networks of skills enablers that can help others within your network. Okay, so you're looking to becoming better at helping others. Fantastic. Eamon, collaboration and partnering. You want to expand and engage your network on LinkedIn and relevant sectors of conservation. Okay, so really nice, clear, tangible steps, something you can go off and do tomorrow, I think. So that's great, and a great portal for doing that through. Thanks for sharing. Claire, also I've just seen your Claire in the Claire, your question in the Q&A as well, so I'll jump across that in a minute. Thank you. Any other questions that come in, feel free to drop them into Q&A. You can also, if we get a few, you can also vote them up. Okay, I'm going to come to that because it sounds like it's a question. So John, your expertise is you want to enroll in a master's. That would clearly kind of move your expertise forwards if it's chosen the right way. Yo, self-development, you want to identify personally stimulating areas in desired skills to help improve self-discipline. Okay, great. Elise, collaborating and partnering, strengthening existing partnerships and building new collaborations to resolve problems, presenting progress in projects. Okay. Nino, my expertise to further explore the subject, collaboration, identify key partners and build networks. And I can see Phil as well, being strategic, identify what impacts I want to continue in conservation. I could contribute, in conservation, and your expertise is to assist effective conservation projects. And then Rosie just dropped in, collaborating and partnership, self-development, actively use LinkedIn for networking, like Emo, for networking and for accessing more webinars and events, such as this one tonight. Thank you, Rosie. We do them once a month. There's a little plug. Amy, collaborating and partnering, self-development, create a plan for upcoming conferences. That's great to make the most out of the research being presented and keep up to date in your field, as well as creating contacts for future project collaborations. That sounds great. Yeah. Always loads of conferences and loads of online you can obviously jump into nowadays, linking what Rosie said as well. So I'm going to go to Claire's question over here. A strategic question. Champion creation of new West Cambridge Community Forest, has finished existing FC training and other courses, create draft plan, identify stakeholders, use local tree volunteer role to approach parish councils and MP, etc. Not a question, but it's a comment about where you're going. Thank you for sharing, Claire. Yeah, great. And you're just down the road in West Cambridge, I seem to remember too. So yeah, it says down there. Megan, question. I can see how this tool could be used for both your current job, i.e. specific, but also for job changes or career switches, as we often call them, in a broader way. I'm getting ready to leave my current job and searching for your next. Do you have any insight or advice on how to use this wheel in a more general way to guide career next steps? That's a great question, Megan.
That's a really good question. And it was something I was going to mention. I think that one of the things about the development wheel is it's not called a leadership development wheel, it's called a development wheel. It really is around helping you develop whatever it is that is troubling you at the moment, what's challenging you at the moment. So it could very much be around career development, how to develop your career. It could be around something, for example, such as work-life balance. How do you get better work-life balance? Mm-hmm. It could be much more specific around one area of your work. So it has multiple purposes, and that makes it quite a powerful tool to use. Peter?
Yes, Megan, one comment. If you're using it for career purposes, one way you could use this is to say, if you've got a particular career or maybe even a job in mind, is to think in terms of what skills will they want of me? If I think around the development wheel, where are they going to want me to be scoring very high? And think about how you present yourself in that context. It may be that you've got to do some work yourself to develop in that area, or it may be you've already got things you can use to show that you have capability there. Development wheel can be quite a strategic way of considering that. The other comment I'd just like to offer, the whole process you've been through this evening with the development wheel is actually a strategic process. You've stepped back from the day-to-day and thought, okay, how might I look at myself through this particular framework? What stands out and what's important? What do I need to do about it?
Yeah. It's also a very visual thing as well. I think some people work in a very visual way. Some people like tables and other ways of doing it, but I particularly like the visual nature of what I've just done and how it captures so many thoughts, on one piece of paper quite quickly. Yeah. Just see another question coming in there from Yo. Can one gauge their own leadership skills, or is it better to ask for feedback? Would it be helpful if there is a self-test sheet somewhere with more detailed descriptions? Okay, would be helpful, sorry. So is it good to do it yourself, or is it good to get feedback from others as well on leadership, on these sorts of tasks?
Again, a very good question. I think if you think about where this came from, the development wheel, it's come from the coaching space. So it's something that you quite often work with another or others to really get the most out of it. So the other person asking you some open questions to really kind of like pull out all of the facts and information. So there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't sit with another person and ask for them for their feedback on this. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why you couldn't sit with someone who could actually walk you through the steps, so you don't have to do that thinking as well as the actual writing down as well. So yes, it can be. There's another question there. Apologies for putting statement in the question. Well, do the panel have any tips for improving collaboration skills? Big question. I'm not sure we can answer it probably in the couple of minutes we got left. I think two thoughts here. One is the earlier question that I think it was Alina put up around getting things done. And the two things I would just say, and I think Peter would probably agree with me on this. One is around getting buy-in from the people that you work with. So you need to convince them as to why it's important that they do what you want them to do. You know, what's in it for them. Now, if it's just hard work for them and there's no real great outcome for them from it, then why would they do it? If they can see there's some benefit from them doing it, then you're more likely to get a good result. Secondly to that is by being very clear when you give feedback to other people about what you expect from them or don't expect from them when things haven't worked, and make that feedback very based very much around the problem and not the person. So don't personalize it. They're just two things I would throw in there. I'm sure we could put in a lot of other things. Peter, anything around improving collaboration skills question?
I think it's worth mentioning that we have courses that actually focus on this. I don't know whether this is the right time to mention it, Nick, but we've in the last over 12 months have been working very much in the distance learning space to deliver a whole range of courses around leadership development. But there is one on influencing others that totally speaks to how do you work with others, particularly where you have no direct influence, to get the results you want. And I think collaboration and partnering totally falls under this heading.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you everyone for your questions there as well. I'm conscious of time as well. And I've seen some really lovely comments kind of dropping in as well. So thank you for answering it so expertly, you guys. As you kind of touched on there, Peter, I was going to throw back to you guys as well here at the end to say if people want to find out more about your work or stay in contact or ways of getting involved or getting even more support from you guys, have you got anything you'd like to share, or is there anything going on that you think the guys will be interested in? Very
good question, Nick. Thank you.
I'll let you talk, Peter, as I've been talking. I'll put the slide up. You can talk it through.
Okay.
How's that?
That's a fair exchange.
Okay.
So what I was referring to in response to the recent question is that we've got a distance learning program that involves 3 6-week courses, a few hours a week over that period of time, mixture of self-study, peer groups, and webinars with Martin and I. So that's one way you can interact with us and develop the skills. Our work is entirely based around tools. We recognize that people in your position generally want things that they can use pretty quickly, that are multi-purpose, that are very practical, and are tools that they can develop and their expertise with over their working lives. So that's what Barefoot Thinking is about, and that's what these courses, thinking strategically, influencing others, and developing your leadership practice are all about. Martin, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think you've done a good job of explaining those. I would say that one of the great benefits of these distance learning program courses, each course is can be in effect taken independently. Together they make a program, they all link together, and within the actual distance learning program there is not just the materials that you work through, you also have the opportunity to have webinars with the trainers, Peter and I, and also you're put into peer groups, so you have a chance to talk with your peers around the topics that have come up, the tools that you've been using, and also the application of those tools. So it's more than just a set of materials to work through.
Right, and from a practical viewpoint, there's 3 courses on screen here. You're developing 6 in total as the package. How much time would a participant need to invest in, say, course 1, Think Strategically, and how much does it cost as well?
Okay, well, I think there's two things here. One is this is our distance learning program, so this is actually slightly different from the short courses, which I'll come to in a minute. So distance learning program is £695 plus VAT. Each course, though, is, you have to remind me on this, Peter, is 200.
Yeah.
Sorry.
275.
275. But you know, there's 6-week study packages with all of the things that we've just described to you. The other option that we are now developing is a series of short courses. This is what Nick was alluding to.
Right.
We've created 2 short courses, and there will be probably 6 or 7 by the time we finish, which basically take the distance learning program. Peter, I've just realized I'm talking over what you were going to say. Shall I carry on?
You keep going.
Okay. Which does basically decouple all of the components within the distance learning program and create very, very focused short courses around specific needs. So, for example, do you need tools and space to think more effectively? Then course 1 on core barefoot tools could be just for you. Or do you need to be more strategic while at the same time getting day-to-day tasks done? Well, then course 2, the strategic thinking toolkit, could be for you. Each of these courses is £90. That's inclusive of that. And for that £90, you get probably 4 hours of study plus a webinar at fixed dates through the year that you can attend, 1 webinar.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for sharing your time. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Can we turn the screen off? Yeah. There we go. Great. Okay. On behalf of Conservation Careers and also the audience, Martin and Peter, thank you very much for kind of coming along tonight, sharing your expertise with us so freely as well, and for helping us kind of walk away with some real clear, tangible next steps. Personally, I'm genuinely going to take this away and think more about it. I've seen other people in here too also saying that they're going to use this a lot. Megan, you said thank you so much, very helpful responses. I can see using this wheel a lot over the next couple of months, and I think that's great, and lots of lovely comments in there. Thank you everyone for kind of sharing your thoughts with us as well. Stay safe, so well, everyone. We are doing these workshops every month. They're all advertised on the Conservation Careers website. The next one is all about women in conservation, which I think is on the 14th of December. I will need to double check that date. But it's next month, and it's part 2 of a very popular webinar we did early on in the year. So come along to that if you're interested in finding out more what it's like to be a woman working in conservation and sharing some of the issues, particularly that the female gender face, within this sector. Martin, Peter, you stay safe, so well. Thank you very much again. We'll be sharing this recording very soon with everyone. Stay safe, so well, everyone. Take care. Have a nice evening, day, morning, whatever it is for you.
Take care.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.